Alright, so we are now on the last Harry Potter film, Deathly Hallows Part 2. Um, Deathly Hallows Part 2 has the highest IMDb score, highest meta score, which I never use. I don't know who uses that, but. Um, and in my opinion, it's a truly great and fantastic film. And it was part of my top 50, but over time, due to recency bias, it fell out. And I'm happy to say that I have put it back in, and it enjoys quite a strong spot right next to Return of the Jedi. Um, and yeah, it's definitely one of my favorite films. Um, what else was I gonna say about this film? Oh yeah, about recency bias. I wanted to talk a little bit about this. I have like a rule, not even like a rule, it's just like common sense to me that, and it just works out naturally, that like basically my top 20 almost never changes unless I really watch a movie that's fantastic. And even then, like, I never like am one to like spend time like going like, oh, I'm gonna move this up two, I'm gonna move that up down one, because in reality, when you rewatch a film, you basically just have like a recency bias and you don't make decisions that make any sense. So it was definitely a mistake to take this movie out of my top, especially when I replaced it with like movies that I really don't enjoy as much and are of lesser quality in general. And you know, my format for making these ratings is basically like enjoyment plus quality. Um, I never like be snobbish about a film. I put the ones I love here, but I do mix it with quality. It's not 100% like just the ones I love, because if that was the case, you know, episode 3 would be like right here, probably, if it was Star Wars, obviously. So it is a combo, but in terms of quality and um, love. But if someone asks me like what's some of your favorite movies, I'll definitely like talk about movies that I love too. Like I'll be like Clockwork Orange, the third Star Wars movie, etc., etc. But back to Harry Potter, I wanted to do something here. I made a separate list for Harry Potter ranked, because I actually did rank it. I ranked it in March of 2021. This is a bit of a historical artifact, and I did not want to spoil it. So let's compare what I did here. So, right off the bat, I think that it's clear that these two are the best, with a possible, in my new ranking, which will be on the left, remember that. I do think that Goblet of Fire is a genuinely like great Harry Potter movie and great movie overall. I would just say the reason that it doesn't beat this one because of the direction. And I would say that Half-Blood Prince is not better. And I just disagree with this ranking. So in this one I did Half-Blood Prince 3, Deathly Hallows 4, Order of Phoenix 5, Goblet of Fire. This one's way too low, in my opinion. And then I would say these are definitely the two worst. So in my list, I go Deathly Hallows 2, Prisoner of Azkaban, Goblet of Fire, Half-Blood Prince, Order, Deathly Hallows Part 1, Chamber, Sorcerer's Stone. I would say that on rewatching, like, this is definitely, I would say, largely based on the ending. And when I think about the film overall, it's definitely got to be lower. I don't know about this movie. I could be right. I touched on in my last video that I'm not 100% sure that this movie is not better than I say it is. But one thing I disagree with my old self is this movie's too low. And I think on rewatching it, if Zipper Demon is listening to this, I think that perhaps we both agree on that. And I also noticed that, like, look at the Metascore is quite a bit higher than. I love how I'm bringing up Metascore like I'm some fucking nerd. No, it's not about the Metascore, okay? But let's just think about the Metascore for a second. It does have a pretty high Metascore compared to these other ones. And I noticed the the critic score is quite a bit higher than the audience score. So, on Rotten Tomatoes, I mean. So this is one of those instances where I do agree with the critics that it is a really good movie, but I think a lot of people dislike it. And I think part of that is they changed some stuff from the books that is kind of stupid. Like, famously, there's the scene where in the books it says Dumbledore said calmly, and then in the movies it's like Dumbledore's like yelling at Harry. But I really like the film. So that's my ranking, and I did all the things here, and as you can see, I rated this a 9.6, so it's a very strong film. I really enjoy it. The only ways that this film would really get better in my eyes and like put it up to like a 9.7 or just up in my list is if the direction was like top notch, which it is a very good direction, very competently made, but it's not, not perfect. Alright, so let's get into our review, and what we're going to do is we're going to switch over, stop screen sharing or whatever, and I will see you back how we normally do this. Alright, we're back, and IMDb is getting open, and we can do the plot synopsis, but for this one I want to like broadly summarize and just focus on the big payoffs, because this movie is really all about payoffs, which I referred to in the last episode as what I really enjoy about this movie. Okay, so like we said, Voldemort got the Elder Wand, and the film starts with the burial of Dobby, and also basically they make a deal with Griphook the Goblin to help them break into Bellatrix's vault, and they basically suspect a Horcrux may be hidden there, and Griphook agrees in exchange for the Sword of Gryffindor. Then Harry talks to Ollivander, who's the wand maker, and Ollivander tells Harry that the two wands taken from Malfoy Manor now belong to him, and they've changed their allegiance because he won them in a duel. And essentially Harry brings up that Ollivander talks about wands like people, like in the first film. He mentions that the wand chooses the wizard, not the other way around. So he sort of believes wands have personalities almost. And this begins the arc of the Elder Wand and who is the true master of the Elder Wand, which becomes important later. So in Bellatrix's vault, he finds Helga Hufflepuff's cup, which is I'm just going to broadly summarize this part. He finds the cup of Helga Hufflepuff. It's a Horcrux, and then he gives the sword to Griphook, and then they escape on the back of a dragon, which is in a really good scene in Gringotts. Very fantastic. And this is at the point where you can see this film is just operating on a different level than the other ones, because the other ones that do have great action are usually reserved for the end, but this one is like starts out right away and it's quite tense and great. And at this point, Harry has a vision, and Voldemort is sort of going insane, and he knows he's like losing his power and his ability to stay immortal. And he sees a vision of basically Rowena Ravenclaw in Hogwarts, implying that that's one of the Horcruxes is related to her. So they basically sneak back into Hogwarts, and it's a great reunion. And Snape hears of Harry's return, and there's a fantastic scene in the Great Hall where Hogwarts has been turned into like sort of a military kind of Death Eater school. And basically, at this point, Harry confronts Snape, and he basically reveals to the school that, yes, Snape killed Dumbledore, and Snape flees, but he fights with McGonagall, and he also deflects 2 of the curses back onto 2 Death Eaters behind him, so it further establishes that Snape is not the villain, but it keeps going on in the story. And at this point, at Luna Lovegood's insistence, Harry speaks to Helena Ravenclaw's ghost, who reveals that the diadem of Ravenclaw is in the room of requirement, basically. And he has to go in there. He goes in there, but then Draco and his friends like want to kill him in there, and they burn the whole place down. And I think Goyle is the one, or maybe Crabbe dies. Yeah, it's Goyle. And Draco is saved by Harry, which is another statement of his character. At this point, Voldemort surrounds the castle, and Harry destroys the diadem with the Basilisk Fang, and also the cup is destroyed by Ron. No, by Hermione, and they have their kiss. And then Voldemort goes insane, blows up the force field, and then this is the first scene where the Elder Wand resists Voldemort. And this is sort of where the film gets very, very good. Voldemort sees into, or Harry sees into Voldemort's mind, and Harry realizes that Nagini is the final Horcrux, his snake, and he follows Voldemort down to the boathouse where Harry, Ron, and Hermione witness Snape. Voldemort basically tells Snape that the Elder Wand cannot truly serve him until Snape dies, as he's the one that killed Dumbledore. And basically, in a tragic scene, Snape is killed and basically like mauled by the snake. And this is a really beautiful scene. So before I get into that, I will Voldemort. You know what? No, I'll talk about this later. So in this scene, Harry goes to help Snape, who's bleeding out, and in this moment, Snape sort of cries and says, like, take my tears to the pensieve to look at my memories. And he tells Harry before he dies, like, he has his mother's eyes, which has been built up through the series. It's been built up through the series as, you know, people always say he looks like his father, but he has his mother's eyes, and it's always comes from characters that, like, love and care about him. And in this moment, Snape says this to him, and it's completely unbeknownst to Harry that they ever knew each other. And it's sort of this beautiful scene. And back in the pensieve where Harry goes to look at Snape's memories, the character of Snape is fully redeemed in a really beautiful redemption arc that basically Snape always loved his mother, and basically he despised his father who bullied him as a child. And it reveals that, you know, Dumbledore asks Snape to kill him, and the reason Snape was so loyal to Dumbledore is basically Snape reveals to Voldemort in the first war when he was a Death Eater that there's a prophecy about a child that will destroy you, and Voldemort takes that and realizes it's the Potter family and kills them all. And Snape turns before this and begs Dumbledore to save them. And he says, like, I'll give you my forever loyalty. And basically Dumbledore fails, but Snape always remains loyal to Dumbledore, and he works to protect Harry because he loves Harry, and he hates him at the same time, because of what his father did to him. I'm so sorry. And yeah, this is better experience than talked about, but it's a really beautiful scene about, like, the most loyal and brave character in Harry Potter, who's sort of like a true warrior, who's like silent and sort of doesn't desire pity or credit. He just does his duty and sort of gets justice on the person that killed people he cared about. And also, Dumbledore asks Snape, like, don't tell me now you've grown to care about the boy. And Snape conjures a Patronus, which is a doe. And you realize that he's the one that brought Harry the sword, so he was always working to help Harry even when he was a Death Eater. And also the function of this with Snape is he reveals to Harry that he is a Horcrux and that he must die in order to destroy the last piece of Voldemort's soul. So Harry accepts his fate and goes to the forest. But I'll talk about, like, more about why Snape was asked to kill Dumbledore. Essentially, when he tries to destroy the ring Horcrux, Dumbledore's basically cursed and he was dying. So he was going to die anyway. So they basically decided, and Dumbledore asked Snape to kill him in order to gain Voldemort's trust completely and continue to work against him from the inside and help Harry. And it sort of makes both the character of Dumbledore so noble and beautiful in the sixth film where he dies, but also it's such a great sort of act of bravery, courage, and duty from Snape, who is like he's like a servant of justice, and he like always does what's demanded of him, and never really shows any emotion until like the last moments when he finally gets like show Harry that, you know, he's not evil and that he always really cared about him, but obviously he has bitterness and resentment because of his father. And he's just a really complex and beautiful character that is really built up through multiple films as this, you're never quite sure where his allegiance lies, because ever since like the first movie, he's set up as a villain, and then you finally find out, oh no, he was protecting Harry. And then that dynamic goes on where he keeps protecting Harry, and then in the sixth movie, it's really, you're on total anxiety with him, and then it turns out he's a traitor. But then over the next two films, he's redeemed, and you understand the sacrifice he made to sort of get justice and avenge Lily Potter's death. And yeah, Harry goes to meet his fate, where basically the golden snitch Dumbledore gave him opens up, and it's the resurrection stone. And yeah, so I think Dumbledore left it for Harry so he could survive the killing curse, but Harry drops it, choosing to meet his fate, whatever the consequences are. And before he meets Voldemort, he sees his dead relatives and friends like Sirius Black, Professor Lupin, his parents, and basically say, like, you're ready to die. And he goes there, and they kill him, and then he basically sees Dumbledore in the afterlife, where he also sees like a dead Voldemort. And then he does wake up, and it's clear that Voldemort just killed himself, or like the 1/8 of his soul that was in Harry. But now Harry's like basically lost his protection. And he talks to Dumbledore, and it's a really nice send-off for the character, who basically, like thanks Harry for his bravery, and he confirms Snape's loyalty when Harry asks like Snape's Patronus was a doe, and so was my mother's. Isn't that curious? And then Dumbledore says, when I think about it, it's not curious at all. And then it ends with Harry saying, this is all happening inside my head, sir. And then Dumbledore says, of course it's happening in your head, Harry. But why should that mean it's not real? And then he wakes up. And basically, Voldemort is almost mortal. It's just the snake that remains now. And remember, one more thing I'll say about why Dumbledore wanted Snape to like become a Death Eater. He wanted to do a few things to continue helping Harry and not, do it effectively and be a traitor. And also Snape gives basically Snape was meant to be the owner of the Elder Wand and basically hide that from Voldemort and basically give him false information. But of course Draco disarms Dumbledore, and it was never his wand. But in his last moments, Snape is convincing Voldemort that the wand is working for him, basically confirming that he's a double agent. He's basically selling Voldemort lies to get him to be weak. And so yeah, at this point, Voldemort has the Elder Wand, but is under the impression that it is his to command because he killed Snape. But as I said, unbeknownst to him, Draco disarmed him, and it's unclear, he doesn't even know that would make the wand Draco's. He thinks it's whoever killed the person. And then Voldemort announces Harry's death to everyone, and then Neville ignores these warnings and says Harry will live on in their hearts, and Harry and Voldemort duel, and Nagini is killed. The Gryffindor hat gives Neville the sword, which he kills Nagini, and Voldemort is mortal, and Harry and Voldemort finally duel. Voldemort's killing curse rebounds, and he is killed. Essentially, after Harry disarms Draco in Malfoy Manor in the last film, he basically becomes the master of the Elder Wand, becoming the master of death, possessing all 3 Deathly Hallows once Dumbledore gives him the stone. And Harry explains this to Ron and Hermione, why the wand never worked for Voldemort, and he snaps the wand and throws it in the river, rejecting its power. And 19 years later, we see that all is well, all are happy. You see Draco, Ron, Hermione, Ginny leaving their children to go to Hogwarts. So, definitely this film is not well served by my crappy synopsis. This film is truly a beautiful one. It's a fantastic and emotional payoff film where you get to see many arcs completed and a lot of complex mechanisms working together to sort of neatly tie this whole story together. It's well directed, a lot of good action as well. Like I said, that escape from Gringotts is legitimately a really awesome action scene, and then the final battle at Hogwarts, really fantastic. I do like the whole mechanic of like he's unkillable until you kill all the Horcruxes. I think it's like very progression based, and I don't know, it's just like it seems sort of like an impossible task, and it's completed. What else should I say about this movie? There's a few things that they cut out of the book that I think they should have added. Like before he snaps the Elder Wand, he repairs his own wand that was broken in the last film, and I thought obviously it happened, but off screen. But I should have added that in. I do genuinely like how almost all the characters that kind of were bad get a semi-redemption arc, at least. Like Draco sort of gets his little redemption when Harry saves him, and it's like their rivalry's over, kind of. Snape obviously gets a full-on redemption. One thing I want to talk about. This film, there's not much more for me to say about it without doing a scene-by-scene analysis that I would do on a proper review. I would just recommend going to watch this film. I really, really enjoy it. It's one of my favorite movies. But I wanted to talk about something else. When I was watching this film, I kind of was thinking, I don't know if it's because I'm autistic, but I always like to make little connections and patterns. And the character of Harry, I thought, I don't know, it's a really good character, but it reminded me of my friend, Zipper Demon, and I was thinking about why, because I don't know, sometimes you don't know why something is the way it just is. And I was thinking that it's got to be the humility. I think he's such a noble character, like breaking the wand at the end and everything about him. It's humility in spite of being a special person that defines Harry Potter, and his sort of refusal to bask in the glory, I suppose, or at least for more than a moment. Always remembering like who he is and where he comes from, the boy who lived under the staircase. And I thought that reminded me a lot of my friend. And I don't know, I do notice some sort of resemblance in terms of the appearance. And what do you know? Daniel Radcliffe is, and I didn't know this, apparently he is as well. He's Jewish as well. Only from the mother. So, isn't that a coincidence? So yeah, I was thinking that was a good little thing that I realized about this film, or all the films that I did not when I watched it with him. And I would tell him this and see what he thinks, but I can't. And I remember he told me that the character from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, McMurphy, he told me that character reminded me of him, and if I was to guess, it would be he has a lot of leadership qualities, and I always deduced that was something he admired about me. And likewise, me with him, I do admire his humility, both Harry and Zipper Demons. And I thought really lovely characters. All of the characters are really good. Whether it's Harry, who represents sort of the moral ideal, the humility, or Hermione, who's like the cleverness and the book smarts, or Ron, who's kind of like, I don't know, like upbeat and kind of friendly and sort of like a good friend despite his flaws. And then there's Dumbledore, who's the wisdom, Snape, who's the silent, unemotional duty and the ultimate sacrifice, doing what is demanded of him. Yeah, a lot of great characters in Harry Potter, and very memorable in general. And I think that this movie, you would be hard pressed to end a a series better. um,
My pleasure.
oh, that was Siri. I don't know if you heard that. Um, yeah, I just got a text from my friend Raj here. He said he finished Revenge of the Sith. What a wonderful movie Revenge of the Sith is. Yeah. Okay, where were we? Yeah, that's a really fantastic film. I really enjoyed watching it with him about 4 years ago. And like I said at the beginning of this, I didn't watch this in 4 years. And it was always pulling on my heart, like, watch, watch, watch. But I just couldn't do it. And, yeah, I did. I finished it. And I made a video for everyone. And I hope you guys enjoyed. I really recommend you watch 1 through 8 again. And if you want, read the books, which are very entertaining and I think are very good. Alright, guys. That's been Saucy Boy's review of Harry Potter. Saucy Boy out.